Hello, this is Professor Marsh, and this is the lecture that goes with the premium tax credit. It's actually lesson number 2 in the IRS's materials, and there is if you go to the Link and Learn website, you'll see a premium tax credit lesson plan and PowerPoint slides in the 2022 lesson plans and the 2022 classroom presentation. So let's go ahead and start by looking at the premium tax credit lesson plan, and I'm going to find that in here somewhere. There we go. The lesson plan, of course, is the guide for people like myself who were teaching this to point out certain things to you. And I think that you're as able as I am to read this. But one thing I do want to point out is that the premium tax credit is a very important topic for our clientele in the Vita program. The taxpayer has to be an applicable taxpayer, and for 2022, an applicable taxpayer is one who has a household income at least 100% of the federal poverty line for family size, which can be a very small amount. There's 3 tables for the poverty line. There's one table for the contiguous United States, and those poverty level amounts are relatively low. I think maybe 13,000 for an individual and 17,000 for a married couple. But they also increase with the size of the household. And I think for a family of 4, the cutoff for the premium tax credit is 400% of the federal poverty line. And for a family of 4, I think that gets you up over $100,000 a year. I think it's maybe $105,000 or $106,000 in income for the year, and you can still be eligible for the premium tax credit. So the eligibility lines are pretty much going to require us to take a look at the premium tax credit for most of our clientele at the Vita program. Also, the taxpayer must have purchased minimum essential coverage either in the on the exchange, the federal exchange, or on the on one of the state or regional marketplaces. So that's if they get if they get a plan from their employer, or if they pay for a plan that is not purchased through one of those marketplaces, then there's no premium tax credit. So, and that's it in a nutshell. It can be a very large credit, particularly for lower income taxpayers, and it provides a subsidy for those lower income taxpayers to have health insurance, which is now required by the Affordable Care Act. So as they required people to be insured, they also decided to subsidize lower income people in order to make that requirement easier to bear. And then there's also a tax on people who don't have the required coverage. Even though there was some disagreement over whether or not the penalty for the taxpayer's responsibility if they don't have sufficient coverage was whether or not it was a tax. The Supreme Court decided it was a tax, and that was the reason that the Affordable Care Act withstood the constitutional challenge in the Supreme Court. So that was Chief Justice Roberts' opinion. So with that, let's take a look at the details and the lesson plan for the premium tax credit. It's only six pages long, and like most of these lessons, the good information after the key terms and definitions are in the links. So maybe take a look at the lesson plan, and then also open the presentation slides on the premium tax credit. The introduction of the presentation slide talks about the changes in the Affordable Care Act, and it has, maybe a more understandable introduction to the topic. If you look at the second slide in the presentation slides, it says the Affordable Care Act changed the existing health insurance market by pretty much everything, but it prohibited insurers from denying coverage or charging higher rates for pre-existing conditions. It created the health insurance marketplace, and it provided a premium tax credit that eligible taxpayers may be able to claim on their federal income tax returns. One thing is not on the slide is that it required minimum essential coverage, or it imposed a penalty or tax on those individuals who, notwithstanding the Affordable Care Act, don't have the required coverage. And there are many ways that people can get health insurance coverage. And if you have health insurance, you know that you receive a statement every year that discusses the type of health insurance that you have, and that might be a Form 1095A, B, or C. The 1095A, the Health Insurance Marketplace Statement, I've now moved back to the lesson plan. The Form 1095A Health Insurance Marketplace Statement is the statement that we'll be working with in order to determine and calculate the premium tax credit that our clients are entitled to. That's one of the most important terms. Applicable taxpayers are, again, taxpayers who have a household income of at least 100%, but not more than 400% of the applicable federal poverty line. Most of our taxpayers, I'd venture a guess to say all of them, will be using the poverty line for the 48 contiguous states. I doubt we're going to have any Hawaiian or Alaskan residents for purposes of the Newberry Vita program. The family size is important. The taxpayer's family is just the taxpayer, unless the taxpayer qualifies as a dependent of another. It can also include the taxpayer's spouse if they file a joint return, unless the spouse qualifies as a dependent of another taxpayer, and individuals who qualify as dependents of the taxpayer and whom the taxpayer claims by putting their name and identification number on the Form 1040 that the taxpayer files. So you can get from the basic intake information an understanding of the family size. And of course, when you enter this in a tax layer, it automatically populates the information into the premium tax credit section of that you'll get to later on as you enter the information. Family coverage is health insurance that covers more than one individual. We talked about the Form 1095A and household income. The household income is the modified adjusted gross income of the taxpayer, the taxpayer's spouse, and the modified adjusted gross income of all dependents who are required to file a federal income tax return if their income exceeds a certain threshold. And that modified adjusted gross income is going to be not just the adjusted gross income that we calculated when we were doing the work on itemized deductions and the standard deduction. It's going to also go back and be increased by any untaxed foreign earned income, any tax-exempt interest, and any Social Security benefits that are not included in income. And of course, for our clients, the latter of those three categories are the most important. That would be untaxed Social Security benefits for individuals who are receiving Social Security payments. And the premium tax credit is a refundable tax credit. So even if the taxpayers don't owe any tax, they can still get a refund of the premium tax credit. There's also an ability of taxpayers to receive an advanced premium tax credit, and as we go through the material, you'll learn how that is done and how that is reported too, because you have to have an accounting at the end of the year to see whether the advanced premium tax credit was more or less than what the taxpayer qualified for. So sometimes there are changes in circumstances, and we'll talk about that as the lesson progresses. So let's go on to page 2, and what I'm going to do is to point out to you that there are links, as there are on all of these lessons, to various tax topics at irs.gov, and you can click on those links and you can see for the Affordable Care Act, the tax provisions as the IRS presents them on the irs.gov website. You can also look at tab H of publication 4012. That'll give you the federal poverty guidelines that'll be in effect for this filing season. And also on the internet, there are some information at the premium tax credit, which is another link back to irs.gov. And then there's also a short YouTube video called Premium Tax Credit Changes and Circumstances. I'm going to ask you not to look at that YouTube video now, but to just go back to it at the appropriate time after we get to the correct portion of the lesson. What you can see also on page 3 are links to the various healthcare reporting forms, the Form 8962, Part 1, which is a reporting form that goes with the, calculates the premium tax credit. And there's also Form 1095A, which is where the marketplace reports to you about the premiums paid for the insurance that you received from the marketplace. And oftentimes taxpayers have changes in their insurance responsibilities during the year. Some of the things that can cause these changes are discussed on page 3 of the lesson plan. Household income could change. You could get a raise, even if it's just a cost of living adjustment. You could get married. You could get divorced. There could be birth or adoption of a child. There could be changes in the household composition. You could have dependents who are no longer dependents. Perhaps they've gone out finally and gotten a job. You can gain or lose based on government or employer-sponsored healthcare coverage. So you can, you might lose your coverage for some reason, perhaps for non-payment, or perhaps your employer no longer covers you, or you change employment, that sort of thing. So, and then you can have a change of address, and all of these changes are required to be reported to the marketplace that you're dealing with, and also to the IRS, and that's how that works. Now, claiming the premium tax credit, do taxpayers who receive the benefit of advanced premium tax credit payments need to file a tax return? The answer is yes. If you claim the advanced premium tax credit, then you have to settle up by filing a tax return for that year, even if you're not otherwise required to file. So if you've received an advanced premium tax credit that helps pay for your insurance, you need to file a tax return at the end of the year, even though your income might be below the filing limit. If the premium tax credit is more than the advance credit payments made on the taxpayer's behalf during the year, the difference will increase the refund or lower the amount of the tax owed. Is that true or false? Well, the answer is true, and it's reported on Schedule 3 of the Form 1040. And if you look at page 4 of the lesson plan, you'll see the Schedule 3 on page 1040, and you can see how that's calculated and reported. Obviously, the software will do it for you, but it's nice to see how it will pop out on the tax return. And then again, there's a link to publication 4012, tab H, which has more detailed information about this topic. Now, this is a very complicated statute. It was passed, it was quite controversial when it was passed. It was thousands and thousands of pages of changes, and this presentation just barely scratches the surface as far as the specifics of it. But what I would recommend that you do now is to go to the linked video, which they have for the tax layer video. Now, this is you find the link down on page 6. It's the tax layer training video, and this is a 6-minute video called "Working with the Premium Tax Credit under the Affordable Care Act," and it is a very important video to watch. It will show you how to enter the information that's needed to come up with a correct calculation of the premium tax credit into their software. And we'll also discuss the issue of, what to do in unusual situations. There's a good presentation on how to deal with a taxpayer who only receives coverage during the middle of the year. And do they have an exemption certificate for the months that they're not covered? That sort of thing. And so a lot of these questions will come up in practice, but the video really hits the high points of entering the appropriate information with respect to the premium tax credit. And again, it's a refundable credit, and it can be a very significant amount of money, particularly adding to a very large refund for taxpayers who are also eligible for the earned income credit and who didn't already receive an advanced premium tax credit payment during the year. So that's something. It's very detailed, very complicated, and you really kind of have to just slow down and take it step by step in working with it. But that's something that I highly recommend to you, and which will be part of this lesson. And there are questions about the premium tax credit on the certification exam. So make sure you do study it appropriately. And of course, while you're taking the certification exam, if you need to come back and refer to the lesson or refer to publication 17 or 4491 or 4012, you can do that because you can take that at your own pace. Now, what I'd like to do is I would like to go to the skills workout, and let's see if I've got that queued up here. So the premium tax credit skills workout begins by referring you to publication 4491. This is the section that deals with the premium tax credit. And just understand that instead of following the link that's in the materials, you want to have publication 4491 open to in the 2022 version of that publication. And you probably want to also have the 4012 open, and also the 4961. So all of those are important. Then there's the second page has a picture of the portion of Form 13614C that has the first question about health insurance coverage through the marketplace, and asks you to receive from the taxpayer the Form 1095A so that you have that document to back up the claiming of a premium tax credit. And then you can see there's a link to the publication 4012 job aids for the Affordable Care Act, and the Forms 1095A, 1095B, 1095C. What you'll see if you follow those links is that you have 1095A is coverage provided through the marketplace. 1095B is coverage individually purchased, but not through the marketplace. And 1095C is employer provided health insurance. And so those forms, the taxpayer should have one of those three forms if they have health insurance. And if they don't have health insurance, then there's another program for them. Household income. There is, and by the way, in your instructions and in your interview instructions for the intake, and what you'll also see on the tax layer video when you watch it, is you can see that there are many, many prompts to find out what type of insurance people have, because they can have all sorts of different types of health insurance. It's not just 3 different types. There's probably 15 or 16 categories that are prompted in the interview questions. So, okay, going on from page 3 to page 4, in the skills workout, we have case study number 1 about David and Melinda, who are married filing jointly. They have one child, Philip, age 17, who they claim is a dependent. Philip works part-time and has a filing requirement. So David and Melinda's household income calculation would include their modified adjusted gross income as well as Philip's modified adjusted gross income. So they don't really ask you a question here. They just tell you what the answer is. So Philip works part-time and has a filing requirement. So he has to add his income in to their household income in calculating what their percentage of the poverty limit is for their family of 3. The next skills warm-up question on page 5 involves Jocelyn and Larry. They filed jointly, and they claim their child, Hank. Hank has a part-time job and earns $5,000. Hank will file a return to get a refund of tax that was withheld from his paychecks. Will Jocelyn and Larry include Hank's $5,000 as part of their household income for Affordable Care Act purposes? And the answer is no. That's the correct answer, because even though he's filing a return, getting a refund, his income is below the filing threshold for a dependent with earned income. So his parents will not include his modified adjusted, won't include his income in their modified adjusted gross income. Continuing from the previous question, if Hank earned $14,000, would Jocelyn and Larry include Hank's income as part of their household income for ACA purposes? And the answer to this is yes, that now it's above the threshold for a dependent with earned income, and so it's included in the calculation of household income, the modified adjusted gross income for the parents. Enrolled family members coverage. You've got case study number 2 regarding Cedric, and I would just ask you to work your way through these various case studies and skills workouts and warm-ups as you have in the past, and go page by page through this important information regarding claiming the premium tax credit. And the skills workout and warm-up is only 19 pages, and then that gives you the out-of-scope situations for Vita TCE. And then on the last page, there is a link to the tax layer video, which you'll see was done back in 2015, but which is still current enough to teach you how to enter the information and to determine which information is relevant into the tax return. So that's it for the premium tax credit. Very important topic, and one that will be revisited on the certification exam and in the work that you do for Vita. So please study it carefully, and as always, contact me if you have any questions, and have a great day. Bye-bye.